a fantasy book published in 1982. Its pages contain 12 intricate paintings and 12 cryptic poems, leading to 12 buried treasures. Only 3 of those treasures have ever been discovered, leaving 9 waiting to be found. 5 of those are hidden right here in the South. Curious? Intrigued? You should be. Let's dive into the mystery, the hunt, and the story behind the secret. Welcome to the Southern Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Swift. This is the very first episode. I've been waiting to do this for quite some time, so I am thrilled to finally get this show up and going. Before we get into the topic of the first episode, I wanted to quickly tell you what the Southern Blueprint is all about and what you may be getting yourself into by listening to the show. I started this whole Southern Blueprint idea back in 2016. To make a very long story short, I set this up to highlight the South, places to go, things to see, highlighting and promoting Southern companies, talking about food and drinks and fashion and folklore, all the things that make the South great. I've had my website up for quite some time. There's all types of articles on the website now. You can go check that out at thesouthernblueprint.com. But I've been waiting to do this podcast for a long while now, so here we are. You are going to hear about true crime, buried treasure, pirates, moonshiners, horse racing, drug smuggling. And as we get into September and October, just know I am a huge Halloween nerd, so you are going to be getting a lot of scary tales from the South. Just prepare yourself. But because this is the first episode, I wanted to do something fun, something unique, something I find absolutely fascinating. And I want to talk about the 1982 book, The Secret, A Treasure Hunt by Byron Preiss. I am first going to crack open a beer for this one. So as I do these episodes, I'm going to have beer or bourbon or wine and tell you a little bit about what I'm drinking to kind of fuel these episodes along, and whatever the theme is of the podcast, that's probably what I'm going to have. So for this episode, I am going to go with a beer called the Eucre. It's from Lost Worlds Brewing. It's right here in Cornelius, North Carolina, which is right up the road from me. Lost Worlds' whole theme for the brewery and their beers is adventure and treasure hunting, which is pretty fitting for today's episode. So I am going to crack this open now. So let me tell you a little bit about this beer. Again, it's called the Eucre, which I know is kind of a strange name for a beer, but let me explain. So it's a golden ale, 4.2% alcohol. It actually won the 2020 gold medal at the North Carolina Brewers Cup. It's absolutely delicious. It's great for summer. It's a light beer. One of my favorites that they have. The cool thing about their cans is, one, the artwork on these are always fantastic, but on the back, it gives you a story of why it's called what it's called. So for this particular one, it's called the Eucre. Again, kind of an odd name, but so how this comes about is it starts with a ship called the Polaris in 1871. They're on an expedition to the North Pole. Their ship sinks. There's 19 survivors. So from 1871 to 1873, they're basically just marooned. To pass the time, they play Euchre, which is a card game. If you didn't know what Euchre is, it's a card game. So to pass the time, they played this card game to keep morale up and everything like that. So on the back of this can, it kind of tells you the whole story, gives you the rundown, and they do this on every single beer that they have. And like I said, everything that I have tried that they've put out is absolutely fantastic. Again, I thought the theme very fitting for this show. So if you get a chance, try them out. Lost Worlds Brewing. Everything they have is delicious. We're going to have the Eucre for this show. And guys, cheers. Let's get into this thing. So this is a very unique book. Published back in 1982, it has led readers on a quest to uncover hidden treasures buried in various locations across North America. The book is an odd and unique fantasy novel, but within the novel, there are 12 poems, each paired with an intricate painting. Each poem and each painting combination provides clues to a treasure's location. At each of these locations, Byron buried 12 ceramic casks, each containing a key inside. If and when it's found, these keys could be exchanged for a jewel. There are different type of jewels for each correlating treasure. For each painting, you can see which jewel you'll be receiving if you turn that key in. The jewel is actually in the painting itself. You can see it. So here's the thing. As of today, August 2024, only 3 of the 12 treasure boxes have been found since 1982. Over time, this book, this whole treasure hunt thing has built this like cult-like following. There's a pretty large community surrounding it. There's a general consensus about which cities these treasures are buried in. So let me first start with where the locations of these 12 boxes are. We have San Francisco, Charleston, South Carolina, Roanoke, North Carolina, Cleveland, Chicago, St. Augustine, Florida, New York. Supposedly this is in Manhattan in New York. You have Houston, Texas. You have Montreal, Milwaukee, Boston, and New Orleans. As I mentioned, only 3 have been found. Those locations are Chicago, Cleveland, and Boston. If you are unfamiliar with Expedition Unknown, it's a show on the Discovery Channel. It's hosted by Josh Gates. The premise of the show is that Josh Gates goes around the globe, searching for lost treasure. It's a great show. It's one of my favorites, in fact. And that is actually how I found out about The Secret. And it kind of set me on this like journey. After the show, I, of course, went and got the book. And I went down this huge rabbit hole on the internet. I was looking into all the online communities surrounding this. And like with most things on the internet, you have people who take this way too seriously and are kind of jerks about it. But then you have people that are super nice, sharing information, and are just genuinely helpful. But let me talk about briefly the 3 boxes that have actually been found. Like I said, the first one was found in Chicago in 1983. The second one was found in Cleveland, and that was not found until 2003. The last one, which was actually filmed on Expedition Unknown, that treasure was in Boston, and that was found in 2019. I highly suggest you go watch that one, as it highlights some of the issues surrounding these buried treasures. This particular box was located on a local baseball field that was about to be demolished. Luckily, this box was saved with the help of the show and the construction folks there. But it just kind of goes to show you that over time, these casks, these treasures, they may have been destroyed or even built over. There's changes in landscape, which maybe could like render some of the clues that's in this book like obsolete. Since this is the Southern Blueprint, we'll focus a little more on the treasures that are supposedly buried in the South. And again, those locations are Charleston, South Carolina, Roanoke, North Carolina, St. Augustine, Florida, New Orleans, and Houston. So let's start a little bit. We'll start with Charleston. So there was also a episode of Expedition Unknown that was focused on the Charleston location. Josh Gates, he traveled down to Charleston to meet the guy who claimed he had figured out the location. They had deciphered the verses, the clues, and they go on location to start digging this thing up. The weird thing about this is that, and again, it kind of highlights a problem, is that you have to get a permit to dig in some of these locations, because a lot of them are supposedly in parks. So they had to go get the permits. Of course, they looked for this. They were talking about the clues and how to narrow this down. They didn't find it. So the thing is like they were either digging in the wrong location, or maybe something has been built over. I know they were in the Battery location in Charleston, so I know some of the monuments have changed, and just who knows what has happened. But and again, they could just be digging in the wrong spot, and that's kind of the crazy thing about this whole treasure hunt, is that you have this huge online community, and they're deciphering the paintings. And you could really kind of go down a rabbit hole one way or another of like where this location is, and people can get fixed on a location. So it's kind of interesting looking at these paintings and looking at what everybody's posted online. But I would imagine if people were as correct as they think that they are, more of these treasures would have been found. But on the flip side of that, he buried these in like 1982. So a lot has changed over time. So the one in Charleston I'm most intrigued about. I love Charleston. We go visit there a lot, and that's one that I think that I would like to find myself. But again, like you have to go get a permit, and you can't just go out there and dig. I mean, I guess you can, and you can probably go to jail, and I don't know if that's worth it. I need to take a step back. So these jewels that you can find, they're only worth probably a couple $1,000s. And if you ask people that are hunting for this treasure, it's not necessarily about the jewel itself or the money that you would get with it. It's more so like cracking this code and finding these things. So, but again, Charleston is one that I am pretty fascinated by, and watching the Expedition Unknown show, I'm wondering if they were digging in the right place. They dug a few holes around where supposedly this is and didn't find anything. So we'll see if anybody else has a crack at it and can find it. And I should clarify something I said a little bit ago. I misspoke. You don't find a jewel. Again, you find the ceramic box with the key inside. You turn that in, and that's how you get the jewel. But either way, so far no one has been able to find the treasure in Charleston. But who knows? Maybe someone will get lucky soon. So let's move on from Charleston, South Carolina, back up north a little ways to my home state of North Carolina. One of the supposed locations of the treasure is in Roanoke, North Carolina. Roanoke is known for the mysterious lost colony. It's steeped in mystery and history. The painting and verse for this location are believed to contain references to Sir Walter Raleigh and the early English settlers. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read you the poem that's in the book that's tied to this location, just to kind of give you an idea of what you would see, what you would read, and try to pick out things to try to help you locate this treasure. I'm going to first do the poem, and then I'm going to try to describe the painting to you. And of course, I'm going to put the images online and everything like that so you can see it. But let me read you this whole thing. Past two friends of Octave in December, ride the man of Oz to the land near the window. There's a road that leads to dark forest where white is in color with two maps. After circle and square, in July and August, a path beckons to mica and driftwood. Under that, which may be last touched or first seen standing, look north at the wing and dig to achieve, by dauntless and inconquerable determination, your goal. Now, it helps if you could actually read, unlike me. But like reading this, at first you're like, what in the hell is any of this? And so you have to read this and kind of like decipher, and you'd have to read it a couple times, and I'm sure I am absolutely butchering the cadence of it. And so you're reading this, and then you're looking at the painting. So the painting is, picture you're in a museum. I guess this is going to be so ridiculous of me trying to explain this. So maybe you're in a museum or even in like a medieval castle, and you have this like statue that kind of looks like a scarecrow, but it's of armor. This statue looking thing has arms out to the side, again, much like you would see a scarecrow in a field, but it's armor. There are strings hanging off the armor, dangling down, that have what look like bells, and some of the strings have keys attached to the ends. Some people have suggested that the faceplate of the helmet resembles the face of a horse. That may be a hint towards the town of Nag's Head, which is directly across from the water and from Roanoke. There's all types of like hidden little clues in here. The jewel in the painting is a garnet, which is the birthstone of January, and that's located where the belly button would be. Like I said, it's about impossible to explain, but like you'll look at this painting and there's clues within this thing. And like I said, I'm probably going to put this one and the Charleston one. I might just do all of them. I might do all the ones that are in the South. I'll put these all online so you can take a look at them. And of course, you should just go get the book too. But it's just insane to read these things and try to decipher this and then look at the painting and then put these together to try to find the location. And of course, like that's hard enough. And like I've mentioned, like you couple that with construction and things changing over time, like no wonder only 3 of the 12 have been found. But that is Roanoke. And now let's move to New Orleans. Actually, before I move to New Orleans, I have to mention another wrinkle into this whole mix of madness. So Byron, who created all this, he tragically dies in a car accident on Long Island back in 2005, possibly taking the secret of his buried treasures to the grave with him. Fortunately, his wife and 2 daughters remain involved in this whole treasure hunting thing, and they control his estate. One of the kind of the cool things that you see in the Expedition Unknown episode, the one where they found the treasure in Boston, is that you kind of get to see the whole process. You get to see them finding the ceramic box, so you can see what that looks like. They get the key, they turn that into the family. You get to meet the daughters, the treasure hunter and his family. You know, they get to meet Josh Gates, and, you know, all of this is filmed, and they get the jewel. And so you get to see the whole experience. But again, like it's just one more thing involved in this whole crazy secret treasure hunt thing. So I wanted to mention that before we move to New Orleans, because again, it's just this whole thing is just absolute madness. So let's move on to New Orleans. I haven't heard too much about the treasure in New Orleans. I've read some things online, of course, but haven't heard too much about this. Of course, if you're out there and you've searched for New Orleans, I mean, if you've searched for any of these, let me know. But with New Orleans, you know, it's known for jazz, for Mardi Gras, for food and partying. But the clues associated with this treasure and this location, of course, kind of inland towards the French Quarter. So again, let me read you. I just want to read the poem that's attached to this location. And again, hopefully I'm not butchering the cadence of this, but at the place where jewels abound, 15 rows down to the ground, in the middle of 21, from end to end, only 3 stand watch, as the sound of friends fills the afternoon hours. Here is a sovereign people who build palaces to shelter their heads for a night. Gnomes admire, fays delight, the namesake meeting near this site. Again, what in the hell? So luckily there's an online community that has kind of deciphered this for you. The unfortunate thing is, are they right? So, again, like reading this could be very confusing, and it's just so funny too. I want to back up. Like, think about, it's 1982. You go into a bookstore and you see this book. You're like, oh, cool. The Secret, a Treasure Hunt. That's awesome. You open it up, and when you open up this book, it's a fantasy novel. And there's like all these fairies, and just, it's a wild ass book. Like, there is some crazy shit that's in this thing. And like, you may not even know that it's an actual treasure hunt, and you're reading these poems and you're looking at these paintings. I mean, you really do have to go get the book. It's like a fever dream. Like, everything is just so bizarre and so wild. There's gnomes, fairies. It's like claymation. There's drawings. Like, it is truly bizarre. And on top of that, it's a treasure hunt. 12 locations. Only 3 have been found. It's just wild, and it's exactly why I wanted to start this whole podcast with this topic. It's something that I've been looking into. It's so bizarre and fun. Going back to New Orleans, something to think about for this particular location is Hurricane Katrina and all the flooding that occurred. Who knows if this cast has been, washed away, displaced, or broken. The painting for this location is pretty interesting. They're all wild and interesting, of course. But for this one, there is a hand with really long fingernails holding up one of those masks that you would see like in the theater, that comes on a stick that you hold up to your face. I honestly don't know how to describe this crazy shit, but there's also a large grandfather clock in the background with the word preservation written on it. The jewel is turquoise. It's the birthstone of December. But yeah, again, you're going to have to get the book, and I'll post these photos online. You could take a look at it, but it's really crazy, all the details that are in these paintings and some of the clues that are in there. This location in New Orleans, the one in Houston, again, too, I haven't heard too much about. Houston's clues seem to lead to Herman Park. The problem with this supposed location is that people can't dig in that area because it's city property. Again, it's illegal to dig without the city's permission. You got to get a permit. And I don't even know if you can get a permit for this location. Maybe someone else can let me know. But one of the reasons is there is a zoo there. And I read a statement to ABC 13. The Houston Zoo said their property has undergone frequent and sweeping renovations, and they are confident that Preiss' treasure is not buried in the zoo. So there you go. They haven't, Expedition Unknown has not done episodes or talked about the New Orleans location or Houston. A location that they did reference in one of the episodes was St. Augustine. Now, St. Augustine is the oldest city in the U.S. I love St. Augustine. It's a beautiful city. Old, has a ton of history, lots of historic landmarks. Josh Gates went down to see a couple of the guys. They thought they had an idea of maybe a few locations of where this treasure would be. They went out, they looked for it, and of course they come up empty-handed. So again, it's just so frustrating to think you know where it is, to decipher these poems, to decipher the paintings, and then kind of narrow it down. And then sometimes you got to go get permits to dig in these certain locations. And, thinking back, Byron, like back in 1982, when he's burying these treasures, I wonder if he thought about like where he was actually putting these things. Did he think that they would be easily found? Or did he have any idea like, okay, it's a park, you might have to have permits? Or was that part of the plan to like make it super hard? It's just so interesting. And I wish I knew like his mindset doing this. And I just wonder like if he could like watch everybody nowadays talk about it, read about it, being online. I mean, it really has kind of built this cool community too. So maybe that was just part of it. Like I said, the gems themselves are not super, pricey. There's just a couple $1,000s and that's it. But it's more of like the hunt for it and finding it and deciphering the clues. So my big thing is like, who's coming with me? I genuinely want to find one of these things. I think the Roanoke location and the Charleston location is the closest to me. Those are two spots that I would actually like to plan a trip and go and just have fun with it. If I don't find it, oh well. But I'd like to kind of like take a stab at this. So I want to know like who wants to go. If you're out there and you're interested, let me know. If you've looked for these yourselves, let me know. And if you're just kind of getting into this, like there's tons of websites that have kind of built out a community and everything like that. And again, I suggest that you go buy the book and then watch the Expedition Unknown episodes. Those are great. But of course, with anything cool and awesome, you're going to have folks out there that want to fabricate something, lie about finding these treasures. I've seen people post things online, showing images of the ceramic cast that they quote unquote found. Of course, it's all been debunked. Again, only 3 treasures have been found. But I guess that kind of comes with the territory. When you're looking for treasures, you're going to have hoax and people trying to mislead others. So again, just another layer of madness to this whole thing. Speaking of which, there is a Japanese version of this book. So the original book didn't sell very well, probably because it's just an insane book. So Byron went to the Japanese to just try to distribute this book to hopefully like recoup some cash for this thing. No one from the original book was involved. The people that did the illustrations, none of those people were asked to help or had anything to do with this. And it seems that no one was really happy with the quality of this book. I guess they interviewed the Japanese guy that translated this book, and I would love to get his thoughts about like how wild this book is. But he says he doesn't remember the conversation with Byron, and he didn't take any notes or anything like that, and he didn't kind of see this as like anything special. He was literally just getting the book, translating it, and that was his job. So again, like it's just another piece to this craziness. But yeah, there's another version of this book. It's a little different. I'd like to get my hands on it. If you have it, let me know if you've seen it. But yeah, again, just something crazy with this whole thing. I hope you like this first episode. It's kind of maybe a shorter one, but I wanted to kick this off with this super interesting topic. I am sure that I will do another episode about this in the future, but wanted to get this podcast launched. Hope you'll come along on the journey with me. I think you're going to like the content that's coming out. Next episode is going to be all about moonshiners and bootlegging, so I hope you'll tune in for that. But guys, I will talk to everybody later.